Hello and welcome back. You're listening to Unreliable Sources, your bi-weekly briefing for mystery lovers, thriller junkies, and suspense addicts. I'm Mike Donohue, thriller author and book club dropout. Let's get into it. On today's show, we're diving into some fascinating bookstore economics, because apparently I'm not the only one who's daydreamed about opening a bookstore despite knowing it's probably financial suicide. We'll check out which classic crime stories just entered the public domain, get the latest on some thriller adaptations, including a series treatment for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. We'll run through some compelling new releases hitting shelves, then take a deep dive into what I'm calling the Boston-LA Noir divide, comparing two giants of American crime fiction, Michael Connelly and Dennis Lehane. What happens when you pit Harry Bosch against Patrick Kenzie? Turns out, it reveals something fundamental about how geography shapes crime storytelling. Plus, as always, I'll let you in on what I've been reading and watching lately. Let's roll. Let's start things off with some recent headlines from the Book and Crime Beat. The Financial Times recently published a piece about the economics of running independent bookshops, and honestly, it's both inspiring and sobering. As a lifelong reader and book lover, I've often daydreamed about opening a bookstore. Even though, like opening a restaurant, I know it's logically probably a terrible idea. Still, there's something romantic about the notion of being surrounded by books all day, making recommendations every day, all day, talking to readers and building that community around reading and books. The article breaks down the reality, however: razor-thin margins, constant inventory management, competing with Amazon's convenience. But here's what struck me. The shops that do survive aren't really just selling books. They're selling experience, curation, expertise. They host events, build loyal communities, become third spaces in their neighborhoods. It's not about moving the most units. It's about being irreplaceable in ways algorithms can't replicate. For crime fiction fans, indie bookshops are often where you discover those mid-list gems that never make the bestseller tables. So if you got a local bookshop that's good, be sure to support them. And if you're secretly harboring bookshop dreams of your own, the article is worth your time. Just perhaps don't quit your day job just yet. Asterix magazine ran a fascinating piece about Google Books and the other mass digitization projects to get all human knowledge scanned and accessible, sort of a universal library, a project that feels both utopian, perhaps inevitable, but perhaps also with some issues. For genre readers, this matters because access shapes what survives. How many brilliant crime novels from the 50s and 60s are essentially lost because they're out of print and unavailable now? Digital preservation could change that, making forgotten classics discoverable again. But there's tension too. Publishers and authors worry about copyright, compensation, and the devaluation of intellectual property. It's the same debate we've been seeing in music streaming. How do you balance universal access with fairly compensating creators? No easy answers, but it's worth thinking about how we want the future of reading to work. Speaking of access, 9 classic crime stories just entered the public domain for 2026, including The Maltese Falcon and some early Nancy Drews. Crime Reads has the full list, which includes some genuine treasures. Works published in 1930 are now freely available, meaning anyone can republish, adapt, or reimagine them. This is exciting news for a couple reasons. First, it means affordable editions of these classics will start appearing. Second, it opens creative possibilities. Modern writers can build on these foundations, create sequels, reimagine characters. The public domain is where culture gets to play and evolve. If you're curious about which titles made the cut this year, I'll drop the link in the show notes. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is getting a proper series adaptation. Sky is developing it, and honestly, this makes so much more sense than cramming those dense novels into 2-hour movies. Stieg Larsson's books are sprawling, information-heavy with multiple subplots and decades of backstory sometimes. The Swedish films came closest to doing them justice, but even those had to compress. No casting announced yet, but I'm cautiously optimistic, as always. These books are some of my personal favorites, and they deserve an adaptation that honors their complexity. In other adaptation news, Amazon is developing a series based on Jonathan Kellerman's Delaware novels. If you're not familiar, Delaware is a forensic psychologist who consults with LAPD detective Milo Sturgis. Kellerman's been writing these books since the 1980s, over 40 novels now, but they've never quite gotten a proper screen treatment despite multiple tries. What makes this interesting is timing. We're seeing a real appetite for procedurals with psychological depth right now, I think. Delaware isn't just solving crimes, he's analyzing the minds behind them. That focus on psychology over pure action could set this apart in a crowded adaptation field. Jennifer Johnson is developing it, and given Amazon's track record with Bosch and Reacher, they know how to handle established literary detectives. Okay, now let's take a look at what's new and notables in bookstores and libraries recently. The Infamous Gilberts by Angela Tomansky. This debut has been getting serious buzz for its unique structure and darkly comedic tone. The book unfolds as a house tour of Thornwalk, a crumbling English manor about to become a hotel, conducted by the enigmatic Maximus. Each chapter focuses on an object or detail that reveals the tragic history of the 5 Gilbert siblings. As Kirkus puts it, if Shirley Jackson moved the Addams family to the English countryside, something like this dark, tongue-in-cheek epic might result. My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. It's January, and that means crime fiction readers have a new Feeney to sink their teeth into. And here she delivers another mind-bending thriller with a killer hook. Eden Fox returns from a run to find her key doesn't fit her house. A woman who looks eerily like her answers the door, and her husband insists this stranger is his wife. One house, one husband, 2 women. Someone is lying. This one once again promises the kind of jaw-drop moments Feeney's become known for. Look forward to having this on my TBR soon. The Method by Matthew Quirk, from the author of The Night Agent, comes an action-packed espionage thriller with a twist. Anna Vaughn is a B-list actress who specializes in playing tough doom brunettes. When her best friend Natalie disappears after a night out, Anna goes undercover, using all her method acting skills and stunt training for real this time, infiltrating gilded mansions and secret clubs to find Natalie. Such a Clever Girl by Darby Kane. Kane specializes in domestic suspense where women are far more dangerous than they first appear. This one features a protagonist who's rebuilt her life after scandal, only to have her past resurfaced in the worst possible way. Of course it does, this is a thriller. Kane's strength is creating morally complex female characters who refuse to be victims. If you enjoyed Pretty Little Wife or The Replacement Wife, this one should be on your radar. Okay, let's get into this episode's main feature and talk about 2 giants of American crime fiction, Michael Connelly and Dennis Lehane. On the surface, they're working the same beat, gritty urban crime, flawed detectives, moral complexity, but dig deeper and you realize they're writing fundamentally different stories shaped by the cities they've chosen. I've been thinking about this lately because I've been bouncing between Connelly's Bosch novels and Lehane's Kenzie and Gennaro series, and the contrasts are fascinating. It's not just about East Coast versus West Coast, it's about how place shapes perspective, how geography determines what kind of noir you're writing. The cities as characters. Both writers understand that setting isn't backdrop, it's DNA. But LA and Boston are wildly different organisms. Connelly's Los Angeles is sprawling, fragmented, built on dreams and lies. It's a city where everyone's from somewhere else, where identity is fluid, where the past gets buried under new construction. His detectives navigate freeways and canyons, moving through disconnected neighborhoods that might as well be different worlds. The crimes in Bosch novels often have roots in Hollywood ambition, real estate corruption, or the city's dark history hidden beneath its sunshine facade. Lehane's Boston is claustrophobic, tribal, haunted by history. Neighborhoods have boundaries you don't cross. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone's connected by blood or grudges going back generations. His protagonists, Patrick Kenzie and Angela Gennaro, are products of Dorchester. They can't escape where they came from, and they mostly don't want to. The crimes they investigate often involve family betrayal, neighborhood secrets, and the sins of fathers visited on sons. You could say Connelly writes horizontal noir, crime spread across a vast, sprawling urban landscape, while Lehane writes more vertical noir. You dig deep down through the layers of history and family. All right, how about the detectives they created? Harry Bosch is a loner by design, orphaned, Vietnam vet, jazz lover, living in a house perched on stilts in the Hollywood Hills. He's defined by his motto, everybody counts or nobody counts. He works within the system, but constantly butts against its politics and bureaucracy. Bosch's moral code is absolute, even when it costs him. Patrick Kenzie is defined by relationships, his partnership with Angie, his ties to his neighborhood, his complicated feelings about the place that shaped him. He's a private investigator by choice because he couldn't stomach institutional authority. But he's not a lone wolf. He's embedded in community, for better and worse. His moral code is murkier. He makes pragmatic choices Bosch never would. Here's the thing. Bosch's isolation works in LA, where everyone's disconnected anyways. Kenzie's embeddedness works in Boston, where trying to be a lone wolf would be absurd. All right, let's talk about darkness. Connelly's darkness often comes from institutional failure, corrupt cops, compromised investigations, political interference. His stories ask, can one good detective make a difference in a broken system? The answer is usually yes, but the victories are small, and the corruption continues to run deep. Lehane's darkness is more intimate and psychological. His novels dig into child abuse, addiction, domestic violence, and the cycles of trauma that destroy working-class families. The question isn't whether individuals can fix broken systems, it's whether people can escape their own histories. The answer here is often no, or at least not without terrible cost. All right, in summary, here's why this comparison matters for readers. Connelly and Lehane represent two essential strains of American crime fiction. Connelly is procedural excellence, methodical, detail-oriented, focused on how investigations actually work. If you want to understand the mechanics of solving crimes, read Bosch. Lehane is literary noir, character-driven, emotionally devastating, concerned with moral ambiguity and human failure. If you want crime fiction that haunts you long after you've finished, read Kenzie and Gennaro. Both writers are brilliant at what they do. Connelly has published over 30 Bosch novels, maintaining remarkable consistency. That's craft at the highest level. Lehane wrote 6 Kenzie and Gennaro books, then moved on. His range across standalones like Shutter Island and The Given Day show different ambitions. For my money, if you want a long-running series you can sink into, Connelly's your man. If you want emotional gut punches and prose that sings, Lehane delivers. And honestly, as a reader, you don't need to choose. Read both, and you'll get a complete education in contemporary American crime fiction. All right, let's wrap up this week's episode with what I'm reading and watching. I have to admit, my interest was waning a bit with the later Reacher books since Lee started co-writing with his brother. The formula felt more formulaic, if that makes sense. But this latest one, Exit Strategy, has restored my faith a bit. It has a solid opening and those classic shifting POVs and confusing motivations that set up the mystery of just what exactly is Reacher walked into. I'm about 75% done, and while the middle got a little boggy, and I'm not sure how the landing will be, I've enjoyed the ride so far. When Reacher works, it works because you're always playing catch-up, trying to figure out what's actually happening alongside him. And this one nails that feeling, at least in the early going. On audio, I really enjoyed all the messed up characters, mostly terrible people, in Lisa Gardner's Alone. She does a fantastic job of really putting the hero, and I use that very loosely, through the ringer and keeping loyalties and motivations shifting. Just when you think you know who to root for, Gardner pulls the rug out. It's that constant moral ambiguity that makes her work so compelling. The audio narration is excellent too. You need good voice work to handle Gardner's multiple perspectives and unreliable revelations. On the TV front, nothing really new to report this week, but I'm thinking of taking a flyer on The Rip, the new Affleck-Damon thriller on Netflix. It's gotten somewhat mixed reviews, but I'm a sucker for their collaborations as a Boston guy. And I'm curious about Steel, the Sophie Turner-led limited series that just dropped on Prime. She plays an ordinary office worker at a pension fund company whose routine day job gets upended when armed thieves burst in and force her to help steal $4 billion. Could be great. Could be forgettable. But the premise has potential, and I hope it'll make my treadmill sessions go by a little faster. I'll report back soon on if either of them lands. All right, that's it for this episode. Let me leave you with this week's question. Are you Team Connelly or Team Lehane? Do you prefer the methodical procedural approach of Bosch or the emotional gut punch of Kinsey? And while we're at it, have you secretly dreamed of opening a bookstore? Or are you smart enough to know better? Drop me a line with your thoughts and maybe some recommendations of books I've missed. You can email me, Mike at MikeDonohueBooks.com, or find me on Blue Sky at Mike D Mystery, or Instagram and Facebook at Mike Donohue Books. This has been Unreliable Sources. I'm Mike Donohue. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay sharp, follow the clues, and don't trust anyone who skips to the end.